Are we ready? Let's start.
Oh, yeah, but I'm super hungry though.
All right, then this podcast is going to be about how to make butter chicken then.
Oh, but are we not vegetarian?
Oh, sorry, then paneer butter masala.
Yeah, of course.
Joe, what's your favorite burger?
Any burger, any double burger without cheddar is good for me.
Nice.
So, okay, this is the food podcast then. Let's just switch trains and talk about food. I hope my stomach doesn't start growling in the middle of it.
Welcome to the podcast for product engineers.
But yeah, coming to the topic then. You remember back in the days when we were in the university, for example, when I was studying engineering, I used to think that I would be that engineer, who's sitting in front of that big screen with headphones on, just like right now. And yeah, being a code monkey, always coding. I didn't really expect that's not how it's going to turn out. I don't think that's what I'm doing nowadays. It looks a little bit different. I am actually talking to people, It's not the same as I thought, that there would be no people. It's just me in front of a big screen.
Yeah, I had the same experience when I was in school. I started with Java, and then every problem that I had to solve, I would just think in terms of Java. Okay, so I would make a class out of this and something like this. But then when I went to college, I learned doing things in terms of algorithms, but that's still, I'm not doing the same thing today. It's completely different, and it's agnostic of, what we use.
Yeah, remember inheritance, polymorphism. Oh, I don't want to remember that. I used to think if that's going to be programming and if that's going to be my future, career, maybe that it's not for me.
Remember how we used that classic example to teach ourselves to always think in terms of object-oriented programming, like the classic, we define a class called animal and then we extend a cat, we extend a dog. But that's not how we think anymore, right? We think more in terms of the product, what we are building.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, I think. I think nowadays, most of my time, I think I spend talking to people, not necessarily coding. And I think, ironically speaking, though, I think sometimes I feel that I'm most productive actually in days in which I code less, because I can think and spend more time on the solution part, understanding the context, talking to customers, PMs, and all of that. So yeah, it's completely different mindset, I think, very different from what I would expect when I thought about like a career technology at the beginning. But yeah.
That's exactly along the lines of what we are going to talk about today, Joao. By the way, I'm Praneeth. I help Team Sigma improve the efficiency of the platform for the daily task of our end users.
And I'm Ankur. I also work on the daily task thing, but in Team Alpha, and we solve problems with workflows, automations, and stuff like that.
Interesting stuff. My name is Nishu Goyal, and I work with the team manifesting a good future for ePilot with, onboarding customers and making the whole process of onboarding customers easier and faster. That's the goal.
Yeah, that sounds good. My name is Joao, by the way. I'm with eRubik in ePilot. I believe the recent hire here in the table. So it means basically I spend most of my time, nowadays at least, asking questions, bothering people, reading code, and try to understand like what we're doing here, why we're doing, and who we are helping.
Oh, I'd love to be in that position again. Easy job.
That was so fun, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then Praneeth, I think you wanted to talk about, the whole idea of software engineering versus product engineering. Why do we call ourselves product engineers and not software engineers?
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a key difference in, how a product engineer approaches their work compared to a traditional software engineer. While a software engineer, focuses on the technical aspects of building code, building systems, a product engineer has a more holistic and a more user-centric approach. And when we talk about software, it immediately brings to my mind that I think more about technology, algorithms, data structures and stuff like that. But when we say product, we are talking about a tangible thing, something that the user uses daily, something that they experience daily, right? So I believe this shift in perspective is really crucial to become a product engineer. Like a product is a story and software is just a means to tell that story. The means can change, but the story does not change, right? And more than just writing code, a product engineer focuses on problems. They ask themselves, how can we make the customers happy? What impact are we having in their daily lives and in their businesses? So this user-centric approach, teaches us to look beyond the code. We spend more time understanding users' needs, collaborating with other teams, and even directly talking to the customers.
Yeah.
And it's more about, creating solutions that make a difference and not ones that are just technically impressive.
That makes total sense to me, I think. So, like, in other words, thinking of ourselves as builders, not at all technology-driven, right? The technology doesn't really matter for the customers. We need to think about the solution. The technology is something that will come later when we need to decide how to build it. But it's not that important at the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree. Like, it's about, building something great and impactful, and that really solves a problem, like in day-to-day tasks or whatever our users are doing, how we can make it easier for them and they can spend their day peacefully.
Yeah, true. I think what I also learned at ePilot is when you're introducing yourself, maybe don't talk about the technologies that you've worked on, because I used to do that all the time. I'd say, yeah, you know what, I've worked on Elasticsearch, I know these many programming languages and so on, but maybe that doesn't define us, especially as product engineers. You want to talk about the great things that you built in the past, not that you used Elasticsearch. I mean, I don't mind being the Elasticsearch expert, for example, but that is not really adding value to your profile. What's adding value is that, you help that customer perform this operation in these many seconds, instead of those many minutes. So I guess that has changed a lot. But I would also want to add the other point that I think comes with product engineering, which is the whole, this chain of communication that kind of reduces. Because I guess in the usual setting, what happens is, okay, there's a customer success team, right, that gets some info from the customers. Then there's a product manager who hears from the customer success team. The product manager maybe tells the team about it, or the team lead. That you could build so many chains as much as you want. But I guess as a product engineer, that reduces. You step into the game, you talk to the customers. If not customers, you sit together with the product managers and the whole team, and then, I think about ideas and also think about problems.
And you get to, feel like in the shoes of the user. So, for example, if I did something, I do not necessarily know like what the user is going to do after that. And if I'm expecting, okay, they are supposed to click here, there, but they might not do that. They would want to jump somewhere else and do this. And that changes, the flow of how they do things and how we designed it for. So that's something very different.
Which is why also the saying, right? Use it like your customer would use it. Use it like a user would use it, and not how an engineer would develop it or use it. Because also when we develop it, we think that, okay, when we are using it, maybe we'll approach it from the customer's perspective. But I guess we are biased.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah. But in general, what do you think? Because now all of this is great. You love to be a product engineer. You want to solve problems. But then what about the techie inside of all of us? Don't we love over-optimizing? Don't we love, fixing shit? I should not say that, but, you want to fix things.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's basically a trade-off between, the effort that you are putting in and the impact that it would generate for the users. So, for example, if I can spend like 30 minutes of my time doing something, and then I can spend, 2 hours doing something which won't make as much of a difference for them. So I think I would, obviously choose, because, so let's say some users do something like 100 times a day. And if I can make one thing better at one time, so it would save the frustration of doing it 100 times in a day. So I think that would make a lot more, those 30 minutes would make a lot more difference than those 2 hours.
Yeah, and we don't look at it like that, because that's something then about going into a specific task and understanding that doing it multiple times can be annoying, although as a simple task, it doesn't look that serious, right? For example, I see a bug that someone assigned to me and I'd be like, that's maybe, not as prior, and I wouldn't want to do it. But again, if you do it 100 times, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. So basically, going back to your point, it's a shift in mentality, right? So we need to approach the problems and our daily tasks from a different perspective, from the customer perspective and the product perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that changes a lot on like what we are doing, how we're doing, and how we approach our daily tasks, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think it's the techie inside me who wants to do something, technical, who wants to get his hands dirty. I mean, that's the first point I started doing this in the first place. So, at some point I feel like, okay, maybe I should be, doing something more technical, more deep for myself. Not, I mean, I know I'm contradicting myself, but, we started for the love of doing something technical.
Yeah, but that's exactly the point, right? We all think that we are contradicting ourselves right now because we want to be the product engineers that we think are the perfect product engineers, talking to customers, coding. But then there's something inside us who wants to, fix it. Even it's like 12 a.m., 1 a.m. You want to fix it and then go to bed. But then at 1 a.m. you realize, maybe, it's not working out. I'll have to come back tomorrow to it. So it's always that dilemma.
Yeah, I think we can also satisfy that need by optimizing something that we know will contribute directly to the customer need, right? So instead of optimizing something that maybe won't matter or is not that relevant for the customer, and just to satisfy ourselves, we can actually think more about the problem and then optimize when we need to rather than when we want to, right? So that, I believe, is a big difference,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
How do you come down on the whole for example, with all what we talked about right now, hiring becomes a problem or more challenging. Not exactly a problem, but it's just challenging in general, because now you cannot look at the project that an engineer did to get hired in your company and decide that, okay, this seems like the right fit, because now there's so many other angles that you're looking at. So, the person couldn't use ChatGPT to do his project, his or her project, and then just submit and get hired. There's so many different human angles that you're bringing onto the table. And I think that's good, because that helps us not lose our jobs. I know you're not losing them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
I think, we are doing things a bit different at ePilot. We are looking for more open source things. So what the candidate actually built, instead of, just doing something technical, I built this with React, I built this with AWS or something. And we are focusing on, getting a more, as Praneeth said, like a more holistic approach towards the product, where they think about the whole product, as in, who's going to use it and what problem is it going to solve. And I think, for example, my case, when I was hired at ePilot, I was given the option to do like home assignment, or just introduce, or have a walkthrough of the code, that something I already built. And I had some of the smaller projects that I did just for fun, and I was happy that somebody noticed them, and it was I could actually use them, and that's what I did. So I had a basic walkthrough of two of my small, very, they are PWA apps, but everybody was happy, and eventually I'm here.
Yeah.
So basically, it sounds like we're shifting the process a little bit, right? Like back in the day, maybe we were first look for technical skills and something like that. But nowadays, actually, we look more for the mentality first. And of course, we want to hire someone that is technically capable, of course. But it doesn't mean it isn't enough to be technically capable without the correct mentality, right? Like the correct way to approach the problems here at the pilot, right? So I think that's a big shift.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you, Joao. And I guess building a portfolio of side projects and, open source contributions also shows how passionate an engineer is about problem solving and using the technical skills to actually, make something beneficial out of it. It shows like initiative and passion for the field. And also, like, for me personally, it's a huge plus when I see in someone's portfolio that they created something to help themselves, right? We always use programming and our technical skills to help our customers, help users, but we can also use it to help ourselves, right? For example, I always make small tools and scripts myself to satisfy my needs, like whenever I want to automate something. So that's a really plus to have in a portfolio. And during the interview, it also facilitates like in-depth discussion about the product mindset of the engineer.
True. You kind of put them in that position to then, having to talk about it, because I love the idea, by the way, that, this is so important. If someone is developing something for themselves, it kind of, it's a personality. right? It explains that they did it, they were so annoyed by something, or they just wanted to fix a problem for themselves, and they ended up just going and doing it. It's the get shit done mentality, which is one of our principles as well. So I think that's pretty important.
And they were users for that product in the first place, so they know the pains.
Exactly. Yeah.
So basically, it also means that we're looking for other things, right? So sometimes we look at a profile and we want to know whether or not that person has founded a company, has founded a product, has contributed to an open source project, things that could theoretically tell us that they care about the end goal, they care about the customer, they care about the product itself that they're building rather than the code itself, right? One thing though that at least personally, I try to look for when I'm interviewing someone is that, like, when you give them a problem, when you give them something to do, I try to see whether or not they immediately jump into solutioning based on what you just said, or whether they start to ask questions, kind of make sure that they play back the requirements to, make sure that they understood the requirements, they try to kind of refine it, think about the problem sometimes also from a different perspective, because sometimes it's also easy for them to kind of put them in a box already immediately on those requirements, but maybe the solution is simpler. Maybe what we're looking for, what we want from them is actually simpler. So I think that really helps us understand whether or not that person has the correct mentality, I think, right?
I think this approach of recruitment becomes more important going forward because we are seeing the AI revolution, like LLMs and stuff. That's making our work more easy, right? Like coding is not the hard part anymore. It's about what to code.
Yeah.
This is so true. Also brings the other point about transparency and communication. I guess what I do in my daily work is not just, be in my code editor, but also look at a lot of Slack messages from customer success or customers directly. We have this nice channel at ePilot, which is, the issues that they're facing directly from the customers, because then you break that chain. Remember the chain that I was talking about earlier?
Exactly.
And now it's not too many years through which the thing is coming to you, which kind of changes the connotation of it a little bit, but you directly hear it from the customer. You see the frustration if they are frustrated about something. And you, as someone maybe who developed it, wants to keep an eye on it. For example, I build search, right? And if I would look at that channel and we are a Germany-based company right now, and most of the messages that we get are from our German-speaking customers, right? And I only look for one word in there, which is search. If there is, oh man, it gets to my ownership, right? I have to be really at it, so to ensure that, okay, if there's something about search, it's getting about my professional pride, and then I have to I quickly go and translate it to English, see, did I break something? Is it about that? Did I not do something right? Do we have the opportunity to improve and so on? So I guess that's such a big point as well, because you have to do this work as well, and you have to kind of keep that in mind while hiring. Is the person on their foots all the time?
Exactly.
Are they trying to solve problems as they come?
Yeah. I think back in the day, maybe the engineers were not the person to do it, right? I think back in the day, many years ago, I think it wouldn't be expected from an engineer to maybe look at, okay, how is this user using this feature X or like product X or whatever. But I think nowadays we have so many tooling around that as well. It allows us to see how they are interacting with the products, problems in which they might have run into, and things like that could really give us some insight as we're building, right? Whether or not we are in the correct direction. Maybe they're rage clicking something. I mean, things could not be working for them, and it's good that we have so much tooling nowadays to take a look and understand and gain insight about it. So I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, but you mentioned about the like the market, about how things are going to be used. But I think in the remote setup, since we are a remote first company, I think it's a bit difficult. For example, when I was in India, when I joined ePilot, and it was not easy for me to understand the German energy market, for example, for our product, for example, and it's a complete different thing there. So it took me a bit of time, and I was not as exactly solving problems about German energy market. I was excited about solving something or solving a problem that helps someone in general. So that's why I was attracted to ePilot. And after coming here, my perspective has totally changed, and now I understand things better because I have to deal with them myself. here in the market.
Yeah, I would want to add one point to what Ankur said. I've been in the same shoes. I also started at ePilot when I was in India. And I'm kind of questioning myself that we all favor remote culture and so on. But would you agree with me that, when you're remote, it's a little different, and when you are on site, you just feel closer to the product. Maybe you would feel different because you're working remotely right now. And but I feel sometimes that it just changes the dynamics a little bit. You feel closer to the product when you're on site. Feel free to completely be against the idea.
I can understand that. I think the good thing in pilot though, changing the topic maybe a little bit, but I think the good thing here though is that we can benefit from both roads. I think so. Theoretically, I work most of my time remote, but at the same time, I can come to the office. I can be here in person with you guys and talk about the problems, talk to the customer, participate in the events and all of that. And I think that gives us a great perspective, a great insight on why things are the way they are and all of that. The other thing that connecting back to your original point, I think that really helps is that we are very transparent about anything. So, for instance, I can easily find customer tickets, recordings from events. We can easily talk to the customer, things like that. So I think it really helps to maybe reduce this gap that we're trying to talk about.
Yeah, but so I would like to add one point to issues. For example, let's say if I created a feature and I've been working on that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I talk to someone when I'm in the office and they say, okay, this customer is facing this, and I just had a call with them, and it would really help them if this one small thing, and I could totally say that it would take me 30 minutes to fix this, and it would be a huge improvement for them, and they would be so happy with that improvement that we iterated on it so fast. And I think so if you're remote, it becomes a bit difficult because you necessarily won't go to someone and talk about specific things. But I think that's one of the plus points of being in person.
Yeah, but this is such a debatable topic, right? So many, we could make it a whole podcast topic, the next time, because I have so many points that I would want to add, but I'm sure there's so many other points that come from the remote people, both of you, yourself as well, right? You're also working remotely. How is it for you?
Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree with you. Being in person is being on site brings us closer to the product because we can interact with all the people around us. With remote, it's just different. You have to schedule meetings and everything feels very formal. But that's why I guess it's important for us to come together for events that our company organizes, like the Dev Summit, like the ePilot Summit. And also another tool that helps us get into the customer's shoes is Full Story, I guess. So tools like that, we can directly firsthand see how the customer is experiencing our product, and tools like these also point it out when a customer is frustrated or they are facing a problem on the platform. These are things that the customers may not complain about directly. It's not big enough to raise a bug ticket, but it still annoys the customers. And when we firsthand see that, we feel for them, and we actually prioritize fixing that and making the experience smoother for them.
Plus one emoji to that.
I think that's actually a good point as well, right? Because I think that kind of glance a little bit on our daily task and how we work nowadays. Because back in the day, maybe I was working on a feature, let's say, I would ship it. But nowadays, you have to think about a lot more, right? Because especially in a pilot, we build, we ship, we run that thing. But at the same time, let's say I ship a new feature. Okay, how exactly I'm going to know how customers are using it? We can use tools like you mentioned, but at the same time, sometimes we need to instrument things ourselves, right? Analytics things, we want to know exactly how the customer got here, what they were trying to do, whether or not they succeeded, some success metrics, things like that. So I think shipping something is from maybe a little bit more complex if we really need to be helpful for the customer, right? It's not just to write some code and put it somewhere, but rather to think about the whole chain from the beginning to the end and how we're gonna maintain it and understand how people are using it. Right?
I think it's emphasized by the ownership part of the product engineer. So you're not just building stuff and then pushing it to production. You're thinking about how user is going to use it and how they're actually using it. Like, so from end to end, so you feel more like an owner, and you do not really depend on anybody to tell you, okay, so this is how it's going to be, and this is what we are doing right now. So I think it, sums up like how a product engineer should be, or should strive to be at least, or how we are doing it right now.
I think the soft releases that we do also kind of help that, right? Because we want to test it out. The early releases that we do to some customers, because we test it out with them who were the the ones asking for the feature, and then you kind of iterate on the basis of the feedback that you got from those first 5 customers, and then release it to all.
And that, by the way, is one of the principles that we use here, right? Instead of building maybe this huge feature, from the beginning to the end.
Also a future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. From the beginning to the end, we sometimes try to decouple it, right? Break it in smaller parts. We can iterate faster. We can test ideas faster. Maybe we are on the wrong direction, which is not uncommon as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we might spend the whole time that we have, but we might still get things wrong in the end of the day. It happens. But if you spend less time coding the whole thing, you test it first, and then you iterate. Maybe you release it as a beta or something. It's much easier, right? It's a lot more cost effective, and also brings value to the customer way sooner, right? So I think that kind of correlates.
I think another valuable principle that we have is rent over build. So if there's an existing solution that can help us ship things faster, why not use that instead of trying to build a custom solution ourselves? So a great example of this is like in our team in Sigma, we own a topic called document generation, which is basically generating documents like contracts and orders from like dynamic user data and order tables. So the thing is that rendering things on in Microsoft Word or in a PDF document is not as straightforward as we do on the web. That's why like the feature has a lot of pitfalls, and it was complex to get everything right and generate the perfect dynamic documents every time. So the team was struggling with solving this. There was always some edge case that we missed. Then the new engineer who joined the team, Joe Pino, he comes in and says, "Why are you guys complicating this so much? Like, give me a minute, give me some time. Let me find some solution for you." And he just finds an API, Convert API, that handles all these nuances with different files or file formats, and we can just create a template and pass it to the API, and it gives us the perfect documents all the time. So instead of spending months on building a custom document generation pipeline, he just solves it in a matter of a couple of days.
Wasn't he just lazy to look into the code and instead browse and then look for sources that you could do it? I think it was that more the case. That worked out, yeah.
I think that could happen still. I mean, even if we try to remind ourselves about this concepts and everything on our daily basis, I think it could still happen. So it's good when someone else come and kind of helps us with that as well, like reminds us to look at the problem from a different perspective. Maybe there's something we can do that is easier and all of that.
Yeah.
And also in the end, I mean, I assume in this case as well, the customer doesn't really care, right? If it solves their need, it's fine. So that's the end goal. Like, it doesn't matter who builds it, as long as it works, it solves the need. That's fine. Of course, here in Impilot, I think we will build ourselves, and we do, of course, a lot of things. But we should only do it when it's core, when it makes sense, and all of that. If it's too complicated, if we can build on top of other things, it probably makes a lot of more sense, right?
Yeah. Also because we're not a document generation company.
Exactly.
As such, right? To that point. So that really helped. I do have another example of something similar that happened. So because I mentioned, right, we are trying to make the onboarding easier for customers, and we are trying to build a solution that kind of copies their config, or there's a templated solution, or there's a template that the customer gets into their system when they start first, when they're onboarded at ePilot. And for that, we needed a lot of Terraform providers that we needed to make against our APIs, which then could be used. But yeah, that needed Golang, and we thought, okay, we need to hire some Golang engineers. But then it would have taken us a while to hire those many engineers, the team of those engineers to build those providers against the APIs. But we were lucky to have found exactly at the right time a company who does that for us. We are doing it with a company called Speakeasy now, who does those providers. And I guess in a span of 2 or 3 months, we were able to bring the providers count from 0 or 1 to 16.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So
That's
I guess,
impressive.
yeah. So I guess this was such a good idea to not do it ourselves. We would have wasted or not wasted so much time, but this really helped, at least in this specific case.
But I think it also comes down to, your exploration. So I might not know about it, and then I come across a similar problem, and let's say Praneeth already was using something and he had this problem too. So, it's important that we say that, okay, we can solve this out, but it also requires a lot more communication. So,
True. And I remember a point that I wanted to mention earlier, but we went off track somehow with some other topic. I guess the office, office versus remote topic.
Yeah.
I do envy, though, that you save the time on the coffee breaks that we waste a lot. But yeah, the point that I wanted to, bring was the sharing and the communication part, right? I guess at ePilot, we're kind of doing good at it. We share a lot of dev blog posts and a lot of good things that we do. We also have our own manifesto from the head of engineering of the company, by the way, which talks about product engineering in general and so on. I don't know, Joao, did you stumble upon this before getting into ePilot? Did you look at those blog posts?
Actually, yes. I think that is pretty much what I was going to mention, because I think we not only share those things inside the company, but actually most of those things, if not all of them, are actually publicly available, right? True. So the manifesto is publicly available. We also have the dev blog and everything like that. Yes. So yes, to answer your question, yes, before I joined ePilot, I could look you up. I could understand how things were built. Yes. I could understand the stack. I could see even like like some technical things, what went wrong, what went well, why we're doing things in a specific way. So that gave me a good perspective on how you guys approach work here, right? Like how you thought, how you've thought about things and things like that. So that really helped me understand whether or not I would be interested, let's say, and also how I could potentially help as well. So
it's kind of attractive, right?
Yeah, I think it was the same for me as well. So I joined 2.5 years ago, and we didn't have the product manifesto, but we had the engineering principles, which were a bit similar, and I could really resonate with them. And in the first call, I said to Eka, I really like this, and I really feel about this, doing things this way, and that's why I was, excited about joining ePilot.
Can you remember any of the principles that you resonated with the most? Because I know mine.
Yeah, as I already mentioned, the ownership part.
Yeah.
So I was really happy, doing like all-round stuff and not just specific stuff. Okay, so somebody said something to me and I have to build it. So it does not make sense to me.
There's one principle that I think I've heard enough times already, which is the show don't tell rule. So yeah, that's a good one, I think.
Guess we are only telling right now, showing stuff. But yeah, agree. For me, you stole the one that I wanted to say, but there's another one: get shit done. Right, I think it's a simple one, right? You'd think that it's a regular get shit done thing that you say on a daily basis, but I think there's depth in it. Right? There's so many times when we get lost in Slack threads.
Overcomplicating things.
Exactly.
Over-engineering.
And that's when you have to go back to the principle, which is also your point about holding everyone accountable. You know, I think you asked this question about how you write all these principles, but how do you follow them? How do you, hold everyone accountable to these principles on a daily basis? So I guess, this is what I practice, at least when I see long threads or I get myself into long threads. I have to remember or, remind myself that, hey, you know what, maybe go to the code editor and actually get it done. I try to do that, but coming back to you. Yeah,
I think, I'm not sure if that's a proper principle, but maybe it is. Connecting that back to, for instance, we have the at least the habit of when you think of a problem, you come up with some sort of like proposal, RFC, or whatever you want to call it. I think that really helps others also understand your perspective, what the problem is, and how you would solve that problem, and also contribute, right? Because sometimes we get it wrong. Like we think, well, the problem is this, I'm going to solve it this way, and then someone else comes and say, well, but there is an easy way or a better way or whatever. So I think that really helps. But I think those are the things that come to my mind, I think, quickly.
Praneeth, we missed your favorite engineering principle.
That has to be show, don't tell. Like you stole mine, but
everyone stole yours. It's
everyone's favorite, right? Yeah.
Yeah, true. I think we forgot the point about, which is kind of contradictory to it, which is the ownership point that you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things that come with it, which is when things go south.
True. I mean,
I have one. I have one point. I'm not sure if this is directly related to that, but basically, one of the things that we do here at the pilot as well, which is very different, and it's very at the root of things, which is usually we are not task driven, right? We think about the problem, which is very good. But at the same time, it means that sometimes we are the ones to come and propose what we are gonna do, how exactly we're going to do it, and that's fine. But at the same time, we need to remind ourselves why we're doing things, because otherwise it's really easy to lose track of the end goal, right? And maybe go into engineering stuff, which doesn't really matter, right? So I think it's a balance that we need to find. It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that can definitely be improved. For example, we had an experience where we had to implement something, and we were looking for specific ways of how customers would like it to be solved. But I mean, we fell into the analysis paralysis trap, so which is a common thing. But yeah, I think it's important, to not take the customer feedback on its face value, and propose some solutions, and then see what works for everyone and not just for one specific. I mean, I remember the quote from Henry Ford, as he said, if I asked the users what they would like, they would say, we would have faster horses.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah, exactly. So I have a very interesting example along the same lines. So in our platform, so our team owns the search features. So there are two ways a user can search for data. There's a global search and there's a table specific search. So we were going through the analytics, going through the full story sessions to see what the users prefer to use more. So what we clearly saw was the table filters were used much more than global search, and we wanted to improve both of these things. So the obvious thing to do there was to focus on table filters, because that's being used much more than global search. But we took a step back, we thought a bit, and we came to the conclusion that no, we should go against that and first fix some obvious things on global search and then come back to table filters. And as soon as we did that, we saw that people started using global search more. So the reason in the first place they didn't use it because it didn't work like they expected it to, or there were many niggles with it. But as soon as we took that into consideration, we fixed those, they started using that feature much more.
So sometimes we can't even trust the numbers, right? Basically, it's all relative. I mean, you Ankur, you mentioned that a couple minutes ago. You mentioned maybe helping a customer that with a small improvement of sorts that customer run into many times a day, right? So it's all is it more or less important than something else? So it's all relative. We need to really understand the context in which things are being executed, needed, or anything like that, and then compare things, right? So it's not straightforward. It's not easy to prioritize, I think.
Yeah.
It's always subjective.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The point that you mentioned about the quote that you mentioned also makes me think of this example from the work that I am doing again at Team Manifest, which is, if we kept on hiring more people in the customer success team to onboard customers faster, which is the faster horses approach, we wouldn't have gone for a car, which is blueprints, right? Which is going for that marketplace that we are building at ePilot right now to help the whole onboarding easier.
I think actually that's where technology enters, right? So theoretically you could solve that problem with people, right? But then in the end you figure out okay, but that's not scalable. Yeah. That's not as efficient. So that is where I think we can apply technology. We can apply the tools that we know and then create a solution, right? A proper solution maybe.
Yeah, but I think it all comes down to, as you said, relative prioritization. And I remember couple of instances that I usually do. So before going on vacation, we had a meeting, the last meeting, and then I was gonna go off, and then I just had 1 hour, and then I thought, okay, what would be the best use of my 1 hour? Would it be continuing something, or is there something that I can quickly solve in 1 hour and push it, and would it help someone? And then I actually found out, okay, so there was actually a smaller bug that I could easily solve. And I actually fixed that before going on vacation. So, and it really made me happy that, and I realized, okay, so this is the best use of those 30 minutes or 60 minutes that I was going to spend, and I have no regrets about it.
And this
Pushing
is
code to production on a Friday right before a vacation. Perfect, right?
Yeah, but also I love how, we come in the power, we have the power to decide what to do and what would contribute, what would add more value, which is difficult, again, I think, in a traditional setup, because you have these roles or, things, tasks defined for the week, which you plan to finish by the end of it. But I guess for us, because now we're product engineers, like what the podcast is about, we kind of decide what makes more sense, what's prior, having that power to prioritize things. On a side note, I wanted to ask where you went for vacation, Ankur.
I mean, I went to Lake Garda in Italy, and then to Barcelona.
Okay, good.
Sounds lovely.
Nice. Yeah.
Makes me wanting to go on a vacation. But do you think there's any, coming back to the power point that I was talking about, do you think there's any negative sides to it? Having too much power as a product engineer? Do you think we
of course. I mean, so it depends on a lot of experience, right? When you hire engineers, you give them power to make the decisions on behalf of the company. And let's be honest, like, it does not always go right?
Yeah.
But you have to experiment and you learn along the way. And then you have people around you who can make you help the decision better. But yeah, in the end, so if you're a product engineer, then, you have to, try things out and see what works in this particular situation.
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, we also don't work alone, right? Like, actually, that's the whole idea, right?
Cool.
So I think we can build upon other people. We can work with them. They help as well. Like, they can really say, like, well, maybe that's not the direction, things like that. So I think in the end, we are never ever actually just working alone and deciding what we're gonna do, like, without considering other things. So, like, we talk to other people. The PM can help. Everyone can help, actually. So I think in the end, having that culture, I think, really reduces the problem of what you were just saying, right? So it helps us not making the mistake of going too deep in something and then not being the right path, maybe.
Yeah, I guess there's also relative prioritization that, then comes into picture. But yeah, okay. So in general, I wanted to ask if there's something that you like the most that we do at ePilot, in terms of course, product engineering, or something that you dislike. Let's think about it. What I like the most, personally, I can go on first while you're thinking, is our blog posts that we started, because I think we attract a lot of people due to those blog posts. And also the manifesto had this thing, right, about starting it on GitHub, so we could collect from there, or not collect, but see how many people are actually interested. So that was pretty cool as well. I guess it's our external presence.
Yeah. I mean, I think like to maybe make an easy point, I think this podcast is a great example as well.
Exactly.
I think any content that we publicize, I think it's very good, because it's also hard to come up with. I think it forces us to really be on the right mindset, which is a word that I said like 20 times already. But I mean, it forces you to think differently and do different things as well, because we're not coding. We're not, like, we don't even have our notebooks here. So I think it's a totally different idea, environment, and it changes everything.
You watch a lot of podcasts where this use the word mindset, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. My favorite thing has to be our culture of RFCs. Like we said, the nuances of giving too much power to product engineers, that's kind of offset when you write RFCs, get everyone's opinion. There are ideas everyone can share, everyone can contribute to your idea, and that's just lovely. I love that.
Yeah.
Especially when someone else comes up and say, please execute. I'm not going to say his name.
So for me, I think it's, what I like is, you can actually test, something that's working and that might or might not work, or if it's a completely disaster, it's going to be a complete disaster. So you can, check things out instead of, just, okay, I'm going to jump in and then make this happen.
Yeah, true. There's also one more point which I wanted to touch on, which is how we, think about leadership or team lead position, a typical team lead position that there is. But I guess this is not the podcast for that, and we'd wanna, come with that topic in the future podcasts. But yeah, unless you have anything to add on the whole, product engineering podcast that we're doing today, I think that would be it then for today's podcast.
Yeah, I think so. I'm good.
All right.
So
Stay tuned then, guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was amazing, I guess, being here. Was it also amazing for you?
Yeah, it was.
yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Actually,
all right.
way better than what I thought. I think it went well, yeah.
Did you think of like a script beforehand that you wanted to?
Yeah, I tried, but yeah.
Doesn't work, right? We always
No, it doesn't.
go
Never
off
works.
track.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
Where
yeah.
are we going for lunch?
Oh yeah, super hungry. Thanks for reminding. But yeah, thank you very much. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
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 You've been listening to the podcast for product engineers. Don't forget to subscribe and join us next time.